If you're studying the famous The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway and need some help navigating that novella, you are in the right place. I'm going to break down key themes, literary techniques, and help you craft your insightful essay or oral presentation and give you all the info. I did English HL in my IB. I'm really passionate about this stuff, so grab a cup of coffee. I'm gonna get you prepared and tell you everything you need to know about this book. So let's start with a quick overview of The Old Man and the Sea. It was published in 1952. Keep that in your brain, 1952. This novella tells you the story of Santiago, an old impoverished Cuban fisherman who has gone 84 days without catching a fish. On the 85th day, he sails out far into the Gulf Stream and hooks a giant marlin. The struggle between Santiago and the marlin becomes a powerful metaphor for resilience, struggle, and human dignity. So while he's trying to catch this fish that he's been trying to for the longest time, is presented in such a confronting way in the book. Just over 100 pages, and it might seem like a simple tale of a man versus nature, but there's so much going on beneath the surface of emotions and situation and the gravity of the situation and the gravity of all things of how it's presented in the book. It's filled with rich symbolism, themes of perseverance, and existential questions that make perfect for a deeper analysis for IB English HL. I personally really enjoyed reading this book. If you see the language that's used, it's much more than a fisherman trying to catch a fish. So it's really symbolizing and euphemism for something deeper that Hemingway would have experienced. So let's go through the key themes he tried to communicate in The Old Man and the Sea. The first theme is the struggle and human dignity. One of the central themes in this novella is the idea of struggle, and Santiago's battle with the marlin, the fish, is much more than catching a fish. It's about proving his own worth, because after 84 days he's caught something. And despite his age and exhaustion, Santiago refused to give up. He tells himself a man can be destroyed but not defeated. So remember these quotes, these are really important and they're pretty memorable. So a man can be destroyed but not defeated. Such a strong sentence, right? This line encapsulates the core of Santiago's character and the human condition itself, or our need to continue striving even in the face of continuous odds. Hemingway portrays Santiago's endurance as noble, even heroic. He's not just fighting the fish, he's fighting to persevere his dignity in a world that seems to be indifferent to his sufferings. So we might not empathize with it, the world might not empathize with his suffering, but it is his life, like he's a fisherman. This theme of perseverance connects beautifully with IB's exploration of global issues like human resilience, identity, and the struggle for purpose, which was a key theme in that time in 1952 when people were, trying to find jobs. Hemingway had just come back from war, and it was just a very heavy period of time where people were questioning where they stand and what their true purpose is in this life and what they're supposed to be doing. Another prominent theme is man versus nature. Like I mentioned, Santiago's views the marlin as both a worthy companion and a struggle. The ocean fish and even the sharks that attack the marlin are presented as forces beyond human control. Rather than demonizing nature, Hemingway shows it as a powerful, unpredictable force that Santiago deeply respects. Santiago repeatedly calls the marlin as his brother, showing a deep bond between man and nature. The idea of respect for one's adverse conditions, even in competition, reflects the larger existential question in the novella: is life a battle to be won or simply a struggle to endure? So deep. How can you not love this book? It's dark, but it's presented in such beautiful words. And finally, we can't forget the theme of pride and isolation. Santiago's pride drives him far out into the ocean, and it's his pride that keeps him fighting even when his body's ready to give up. But his pride also leads to isolation, both physically and emotionally. He's going alone, and in the end he returns alone with only the skeleton of the marlin. This theme of isolation also reflects existentialist undertones in Hemingway's work. Santiago is alone in his battle against nature, much like humans are alone in their search for meaning in a seemingly indifferent universe. This is a great point to explore in your IB English HL analysis, especially if you're looking to connect with broader philosophical questions. You know, you're not just fighting with nature, you're actually fighting for meaning. Who is Santiago without catching this fish, if you think about it? And there were quite a lot of literary techniques that Hemingway used in The Old Man and the Sea, so let's explore them. So, symbolism, most importantly. For example, the marlin represents Santiago's ultimate challenge, his Moby Dick, so to speak. It's not just a fish, it's a symbol of achievement, struggle, and perhaps even Santiago's soul. Similarly, the lions that Santiago dreams of represent his youth and strength. These lions serve as a symbol of his former vitality and are a recurring motive that reminds us of his desire to relive his days of glory, which I think Hemingway was trying to communicate about himself as well. But remember, this analysis is about the book, not about the author, but you can time and time again mention it briefly. Even the sea symbolizes both beauty and cruelty of nature. For Santiago, the sea is life. It's unpredictable, often harsh, but also filled with moments of tranquility. So when analyzing The Old Man and the Sea, always pay attention to how these symbols reflect larger themes of life, death, and struggle. Another literary technique is Hemingway's own writing style, the iceberg theory. Hemingway's famous iceberg theory, also known as his minimalist style, is essentially a style where Hemingway believed that only a small part of the story should be visible on the surface, with the bulk of its meaning hidden underneath, like an iceberg. This is exactly what's happening in The Old Man and the Sea. You can tell it's not just a story about a fisherman trying to catch fish. On the surface, obviously, it is a story about an old man catching a fish, but beneath that, there's a whole world of existential struggle, philosophical reflection, and human endurance. When you're analyzing the novella, dig deeper, look for underlying meaning in the dialogue, in Santiago's actions, and the interactions between him and the natural world, because that's really what he's up against. There are also biblical and classical allusions. Throughout the novella, there are references that connect Santiago's struggle to larger, almost mythic themes. For example, some readers interpret Santiago as a Christ-like figure, especially when he carries his mask like a cross after returning home. The imagery of Santiago's bleeding hands and his ultimate defeat also can be seen as allusions to suffering and redemption. This offers a spiritual layer to the novella, suggesting that Santiago's journey is more than just physical, it's a moral and spiritual test. Now that we've covered the themes and techniques, let's talk about how you can apply all of that in your IBHL essays and oral presentations. In your analysis, always connect Hemingway's themes to global issues. For instance, Santiago's struggle can be linked to the universal human experience of dealing with failure, pride, and desire for redemption. You can also explore the novella's commentary of man's relationship with nature, which I did a lot, or the existential loneliness that comes from pursuing one's own path. Make sure you do a close reading of key passages. Hemingway's language may seem simple, but every word is carefully chosen. Analyze specific quotes such as "he was an old man who fished alone," and unpack the deeper meaning. What does this tell us about Santiago's isolation and determination? And when it comes to writing your essays, structure is everything. Start with clear introduction that outlines the themes or techniques we just explored, and use the acronym. P is a bad acronym, but trust me, it works. State your point, state your evidence, and state your explanation. Make your point, evidence, explanation. P. To ensure each paragraph has a clear focus. Don't just summarize, make sure you're analyzing the deeper meaning behind Hemingway's words. So know the key themes, have examples for those key themes to explain them, and then explore his writing style. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into The Old Man and the Sea. It's one of my favorites from IBHL, and if you want me to analyze more text, I am more than keen to. And remember, Hemingway's novella is a powerful exploration of human man's struggle, dignity, and the complexities of life. It's not just about a man catching a fish. or an old man catching a fish, which is even more depressing, but it is super relevant at the time and it has such a great writing style. So I do recommend really reading it because it's only over 100 pages and it will give you a lot of quotes to include in your explanations. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram and I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.